Good morning, everyone. Let me go ahead and get this slideshow started here. So this morning we're going to be talking about the FDOT SS4 update. I just wanted to mainly cover some issues with the installation and configuration details related to FDOT SS4. Then we'll talk a little bit about some of the new features and changes that come within the workspace. So to begin, the system requirements for FDOT SS4 is Microsoft Windows 7, 32-bit or 64-bit operating system. Hopefully everybody's running a 64-bit Windows 7 by now. Also Microsoft.NET Framework 3.5, Microsoft Office 2013, and then the new GEOPAK version is 08, 11, 09, 845. And all these system requirements that I just read off here are kind of the standard CAD workstation in FDOT. So does that mean that it won't work on, let's say, Windows 8.1 64-bit? No, it'll work fine on that. In fact, that's what we're looking at right now in the presentation today. I've got Windows 8.1 on my desktop system here. So we are testing other operating systems as well. It's just that the system requirements are what the software was most commonly tested on. Also, since we use Power GEOPAK here in FDOT, that's kind of the system requirement, but it will also work with MicroStation and the GEOPAK suite combined. Those are basically equal applications. So if you do use the suite and MicroStation, you want to be sure to get the MicroStation version 08, 11, 09, 714. That one was developed specifically for this 845 version of GEOPAK. If you have trouble finding it, I find the easiest way to get the the correct MicroStation version downloaded for GEOPAK is to just search for the GEOPAK suite version that you're looking for. And then it'll list out the dependencies under that version. So in this example here, this is the latest 845 version, and then if you expand using the arrow here on Bentley's select site, you'll see any dependencies that go with that. So in this case, it's the 09714 version of MicroStation. Okay, so what are the main differences between SS3 and SS4? Really, it's just a lot of bug fixes. SS4 GEOPAK, and here we're talking mainly about GEOPAK. We haven't got to the FDOT workspace yet. The differences really are that SS4 is really just a maintenance release for the SS3 GEOPAK, but there was one critical change in there, so they decided to rename it to SS4. And that was that the civil model format has been updated. So when you open files that were created in SS3 with the SS4 version of GEOPAK, you'll probably get a dialog warning you that obsolete data has been found. And that's really only in the cases where you was using any of the new Open Roads tools. Let's say you were using, if you open up an SS3 file, say a typical section that doesn't have any Open Roads data in it, it won't care. It's the MicroStation format's the same. It's going to come forward. But then you go and open up your DSGNRD file you created in SS3, and it's got the Open Roads technology built in there using the alignments or terrains or corridors or whatever. Then it's going to recognize that that's an older data format, and it's going to prompt you to upgrade that format. And you'll have three options when you get prompted for that. You'll have an option you can say yes, no, or cancel. If you choose to say yes, then it's going to go ahead and just upgrade the file and just open right up. If you select no, then it's going to open the file read-only and not upgrade the model format. Then, of course, if you hit cancel, it's just going to close MicroStation or Power GEOPAK down, and it won't make any changes at all. So it's not a real big deal. It's just like the old days when you would go from one version of GEOPAK to another, and the GPK format would change. First time you opened a GPK in Kogo, it would just convert it for you. That's the same situation here. The big thing here is that it's not backwards compatible. So once you upgrade a file to SS4 using the FDOT SS4 workspace or just the Bentley default workspace, it can't be opened in SS3 anymore. If you try to open it in SS3, then you're going to get a dialog like you see here on the right of the screen that says the civil data found is in a newer version of the civil products, and then all you can do is press OK, and it's just not going to open the file. So SS4 files can be opened in SS2 though. So I guess the big difference there is SS2 doesn't understand the open roads technology, so you're not going to be able to do corridors or whatever, but it does still understand MicroStation, so it's going to see all of that data as, just plain MicroStation elements. Just wanted to check on some questions. So I've got a couple questions here we'll go ahead and hit before we move on. This is referring back to the versions. So let me just back up a slide here. This is referring back to the system requirements. It's asking, what does it take to configure Office 2007? We've had issues with FDOT SS2 and the MRs and had to deal with that before. And that's true. In the older versions, we've had zip files out on our Bentley community site that you could download, and any of the VBAs that were using Office resources would be included in there, and you could just update those. And we had them for the different versions of Office. But in our experience with the SS3 release, the VBAs in the newer version of MicroStation or whatever seem to be self-healing, and we didn't really need to have multiple versions. So hopefully we'll have the same situation here, that it will recognize Office resources no matter which version you have there. If you do run into a problem with any of the VBAs and it gives you an error about an Office version or really any VBA error, just drop an email to the ECSO support email address, and we'll help you with that. The next question was based on the information we were just talking to there. Once opened in SS2, is the civil data preserved to go back to SS4? And yes, it is. You can go back and forth, but of course, if you go modifying the data or deleting any data that might show up in SS2, that could cause problems. So that's really it. It's a civil model change, and just something to look out for. And next thing you're going to notice when you go to install the software is that SS4 is a replacement for SS3. You can't install SS4 GEOPAK and SS3 GEOPAK on the same machine. They have the same product code, so when you go to do the install, Windows is going to see them as the exact same product. Again, it's really just a maintenance release for SS3, so you're going to have to uninstall any SS3 versions of Power GEOPAK or MicroStation in the GEOPAK suite that you have, and then install these newer versions with the upgrade. Now, SS2 and SS4 can be installed on the same computer, though. So, and I just went ahead and put out some steps here for you. You can install, or basically what I would recommend doing in that case is uninstall everything, and then install the newest version of MicroStation, the 714, that supports SS4, and it will also support the SS3 version of GEOPAK too. So you can install that version of MicroStation, then install the 615 version of GEOPAK, the SS4 version of GEOPAK, which is the 845, and then reinstall your FDOT SS2 and SS4 clients. And then you should be able to run both workspaces fine then. Now, I will warn, now that I've said that, is that the FDOT SS2 workspace is no longer going to be maintained. What does this mean? This just means that any design bulletins that come out, any changes to the design standard, any new pay items, any pay items that get closed, none of those things are going to be fixed in FDOT SS2 going forward. They'll only be fixed in FDOT SS4. So, you'll want to look closely at your projects and decides which ones you want to go ahead and move forward if they're going to be around very long. Okay, so we got a question here. It says we're in the middle of SS3 training series of webinars using the data sets and stuff from our website. Can these data sets still be used in SS4? Yes, and we are updating the training manuals to reflect the changes in SS4, but the technology is still the same. You'll be able to use the SS4 with the SS3 data sets for right now. Just know that when you open up the ones containing open roads data, that you'll have to upgrade those by clicking the yes button. So if we currently have an SS2 and SS3 installed, should we still do the full uninstall and reinstall? For example, could we uninstall GEOPAK SS3 and FDOT SS3 and use the new version of MicroStation to patch the old one and then install SS4? I recommend doing the full uninstall. We've had several issues that were directly related to people just patching an older version of MicroStation with the new one. It's usually just some real odd error that you can't explain any other thing, but as soon as we uninstall it and then reinstall it using a full clean install, it seems to resolve a lot of those issues. Power GEOPAK SS3 and Power GEOPAK SS4 cannot be installed on the same computer. This is correct because, again, it has the same product code. SS4 is a replacement for SS3. It's not a separate product. That's why you can install SS2 and SS4 because they're separate products, but SS3 and SS4 are the same product, so it's a replacement. See if I can catch any more here. Will products designed in SS2 be able to be edited in SS4 later on in construction? We want to make sure that not using like V7 and V8. Yes, really going forward's not that huge of a deal from SS2 to SS4. We'll get to that in a couple more slides. I'll show you some considerations on that. So let's get through a couple more slides, and I think that might answer a few of these questions related to the upgrade. These are some of the things that I would consider in going forward with projects. And these are more the ones in the design process, not the ones going to construction, but this is the kind of a decision matrix that you can look at when considering what to do with projects. So is it nearly complete? I said phase 3 plus here, but really, is it going to be finished in the next 6 months, 8 months, year, or whatever? Then yes, you might consider that as a project to remain. You wouldn't want to migrate that. But if it's going to take more than that 6 months, say January or later, then you might consider migrating that one, because again, as design standards change or bulletins come out or whatever the new indexes come out in January require changes, those won't be included in future releases. So you'd want to consider upgrading at that point. So the next question then would be, if you do decide to upgrade, no, you're not in phase 3, it's going to take a year or more to finish, then you'll want to go down this path. So the next question was corridor model used in SS2? If no, then it's an easy answer. Yes, just go ahead and migrate it, because really the only difference between SS2 and SS4 are level changes, unless you've done corridor modeling. So that's an easy migration. You just move forward, make your level changes, and then you're right up to date. You can continue using SS4. Okay, so what if you did use corridor modeling? Well, then you're going to have to just look at the project, and this is really something you're going to have to do on a project-by-project basis. What's the complexity of the model? Is it nearly complete? Do you have say a ton of point controls? It's just going to be a decision point at that point, whether you want to convert that SS2 corridor model into the open roads technology and use the new corridor technology. If so, then yes, you would go ahead and migrate that. If not, then you can just finish it up in SS2, I suppose. So that's just kind of some things to consider there. Hopefully that answered a couple of those questions. So, GEOPAK product add-ins. We're going to move on into some more details about the GEOPAK install. What you may not know is that when you install GEOPAK Suite or Power GEOPAK Now, you also get additional products installed. For example, Descartes is installed with the GEOPAK Suite. There's the new subsurface utility engineering product that gets installed with the GEOPAK Suite or Power GEOPAK. And there's also new hydraulic data, and this is specifically with this new version of GEOPAK. It includes new hydraulic software for the use in SUDA. So you'll get products like Storm CADD, Civil Storm, Sewer CADD, and Sewer GEMS installed. And now, while all these products get installed with GEOPAK, they aren't necessarily covered by the GEOPAK Suite licensing. I recommend that you contact your Bentley account representative, get detailed information on how these product add-ins are licensed, and then review your account coverage, because activating some of these products could potentially increase the cost of your licensing agreements with them. And that's what you'll see here. If you go to activate any of these products, you're going to get a dialog as shown here. And it's going to say this product add-in enhances functionality of GEOPAK, and that in this case, using the subsurface utility engineering product, will log additional usages of the subsurface utility engineering software and may result in incremental costs. Continue loading. If you click yes here, it's going to show that you use the license. If you click no, then of course it's not going to load the product, and it shouldn't show the license activation there. Again, this is something you need to talk with your Bentley account reps on. Now, since I used that example before, here's another example where the subsurface utility engineering is kind of in a gray area. It really covers three main functions. It does models for the utilities, it does clash detection of the utilities, and it does enhanced attribution of utilities. If you just want to model a utility, that's covered as part of your GEOPAK Suite license. But as soon as you want to do clash detection or apply some enhanced attributes to it, like utility company name, more details like that about the owners and so forth, of the other properties of the utility, then you would have to activate the product as well. And you'll be prompted when you try to I guess use a feature that would trigger an activation. As you see in the dialog here at the bottom of the screen, I used an example of trying to add some additional attributes to product, and it says that this function requires license activation, and it tells me to go back to that product add-ins menu to activate the product. Of course, I would go there, and then it would warn me that I'm going to require another license. Again, it'll trigger it when needed. Now, what we've done, I guess, to address some concerns that were brought up about this, is I came up with a way to disable those menu options for users. So I'm sure in a lot of companies you would have concerns about giving all the users the ability basically to activate new product, basically purchase new products by activating them. So I came up with a way that you can go in and disable those product add-in menus. And it's real simple. Basically, I went in and tracked down where their DGN lib was that was displaying the menu options for the product add-ins menu. And then I added some additional properties to them that will allow you to add configuration variables to the workspace to disable those tools. So to apply this and get this extra level of, I guess, control over the activation of licenses, all you have to do is copy that civilcommands.dgnlib file that I created from the FDOTSS4 resources dgnlibs general folder on the server, and copy that down to the C program files, x86, common files, Bentley, shared, civil platform, 08, 11, 09 folder on each of the client PCs. you're actually going to be replacing a Bentley DGN Live, but this is a copy of that Bentley DGN Live that I added some additional logic to. And what I did is for each one of those product add-ins that would allow you to do that, I added some conditional statements to it that would disable them if this related configuration variable was true. So if FDOT disable Descartes is equal to true, then Descartes is going to be disabled. And this allows me to do a couple of things. I can put these configuration variables in a custom vars.txt file on the server and basically disable every client's ability to enable Descartes or Sue or any one of these products. And then I could go to the individual users' machines that would need these products. Say in drainage, I could go down to the drainage department and add just on their machines in their UCF files this statement FDOT disable storm CADD equals and set it defaults for drainage products, and then the drainage users would be able to activate it, but nobody else in the office could. You see how it gives you that extra level of control over your licensing of these product add-ins. Okay, so we've got a couple questions here. Do the hydraulic add-ins replace GEOPAK drainage? Yes, they do, or they will in the future. We've still got some configuration to do with the SUDA stuff. And the way those work is you can use StormCAD for up to 100 nodes. So you can have a network of 100 inlets. If you go over 100, then you're going to have to activate the StormCAD Unlimited option. But what you could do is just have, if you had 400 inlets, just have 4 100 inlet networks. You're just limited to 100 inlets per network under the GEOPAK suite license. Again, you go over that 100, then you're going to have to activate an additional product add-in to use the larger network. Should structures be making the switch over from SS2 to SS4 Workspace? Yes, I would recommend doing that. Structures has, I guess, made changes in the FDOT SS4 Workspace. They've upgraded some cells and stuff like that, and they went through and tested that, so that's that should be all good to go there. Descartes was included in previous version releases. Is this now a cost involved with the use of Descartes? Yes, I mean, Descartes has always been an extra product add-in. We here at the department have some Descartes licenses, so it hasn't been an issue, but it is an additional product license required. Question here, can you use it on the server and block everyone? And I think this question was referring back to the DGN Live. Can you just place the DGN Live on the server and then use it to control everyone? No, you really can't. It was difficult. I tried to find a way to automate that through configuration variables and such, but the way the DGN Live is built and configured, I couldn't replace it with configuration variables. I had to physically replace it, but I could just copy hours to the server and point to it, but that would just add in a second product add-ins menu option, not replace or remove the current product add-ins menu. And that's really what you're wanting to accomplish, is to replace the current one with the new one that has, I guess, the intelligence built in it. Yes, I believe there was a typo here. Good catch. It's not custom vars.txt, it's custom vars.txt. Again, this just gives you the ability to gain a little extra control. All the information I'm giving you relating to Bentley licensing is secondhand, based on my emails and understanding. I, in no way represent or speak for Bentley, so you should definitely contact your account reps and basically confirm what coverage you have. Okay, so now we've got through the installs and the GEOPAK details and such, so we'll start getting into new and updated features in FDOTSS4 Workspace itself. Again, even with the FDOTSS4 stuff, it's really just a maintenance release, but since we rolled out new versions of GEOPAK, we went ahead and rebadged it, renamed it FDOTSS4. That means there's not a ton of new stuff in this release, but we tried to get some key features updated here. We do have new, I guess, changes to the user interface that we'll go over. There's a couple enhancements to key products like LDM and Sheet Navigator. There's a few new tools. We got a level filters control tool, some level changes, some big traffic control changes, and a couple other new tools to look at. To start off, we'll talk about the user interface changes. Function keys have been remapped slightly. There's been just a few changes. Before we had F3 would open one view. Now we've moved that to Control F1, and we did that so we could use F3 to open up 3 views now. And the other new tool is F5. There's a new utility that will dim the references, kind of shade them out, and make the active design file stand out more. And then the rest of them are pretty much the same. Oh, there is one more. I've just got it covered up by this extra dialog on my screen. The Alt F3 is to exaggerate Z. Again, this is another new tool that allows you to exaggerate the vertical elevations in a model or a terrain. So exaggerate Z, how does that work? Exaggerate Z is a new tool. It allows you to apply a vertical exaggeration to a 3D file. It's really just for viewing purposes, because it's actually going to change the model by a multiplication factor. So it's really just a tool for viewing. It does create a temporary visualization model and actually changes the model. And then once you close the tool, it will remove that temporary model and put you back in the model you were working in. But you can see from the images here on the side of the screen how it can really make things stand out and see the differences when you exaggerate those terrains. Also, the new dim references tool is kind of neat. Basically, what it allows you to do is if you hit F5 on the keyboard when you got a real busy file, a bunch of references and stuff going on, it will soften the appearance of all of the references. And then it sets the active file to draw last, so it kind of stands out in front of all those references. It just makes it a little bit easier to see. As you can see there from the image on the left to the image on the right, it really makes the things in this active file stand out more. And it's just a toggle, so F5 will toggle it on and then hit it again to toggle it off, and you can go back and forth. We also made a couple changes to some context menus, added a couple new things as well. One of the new additions in this latest FDOTSS4 workspace is when you right-click in any of these files, the DSGNRD file, the GDTMRD file, the GKLNRD file, or the RDXSRD file, you're going to have a new context menu option, a new right-click menu option for view tools. And this will basically let you get to a lot of those tools that you can also access with function keys. 1 view, 2 views, 3 views, 4 views, exaggerate Z, all of that common tools related to navigating or adjusting the appearance of your views. And some of the older ones, whether you know it or not or realize it or not, anytime you're in a key sheet file, you can right-click and get to a lot of extra context things. Basically, all the things you can get to on the FDOT menus, you can get to with a right-click to place cells or so forth. Sheet borders, there's context menus, typical sections, summary quantities. So each one of these file types, when you right-click, you'll have additional options that are available. And let me just scan the questions one more time before we move on. This is not really new. This was in the FDOTSS3 as well, but I doubt many people realize it was there. There's keyboard shortcuts that allow you to access tools from the Civil Tools menu just by hitting like Control-Shift-A will bring up the analysis and reporting tools right on the cursor. Control-Shift-G will bring up general geometry tools. And that works kind of nice because you can just hold Control-Shift down with your thumb and then hit G and it's going to pop it right up on your cursor. So this is basically all of the core civil tools that you can access just with keyboard shortcuts. So let's go ahead and look at a few of those before we go in. I haven't really got in MicroStation yet. So we've got MicroStation here. Let me go open up a file. Just go to the DSG-NRD file. Look at some of these tools. Again, we're talking mainly about the user interface so far. So the function keys, if I hit F1 or Control F1, it's going to take me to one view. F2 will give me 2 views. F4 will give me 4 views. And you know, if I had one of these, let's say I had a profile here, and say a cross-section view or something here, then I can open all those up at once. If I want to see 3 views, I can now hit F3, and that will take me to that view. And I did that in that order because if you go like F2 to F3, now it's got it stored and it remembers that. But you know, it's easier to go from 4 to 3, I guess, than like 1 to 3 and get it to arrange correctly. So we'll go back to 4. F5 again is the new tool to dim the references. So you can see how when I toggle that on and off, it makes that just so much easier to see all the details of the design there. So when you get a busy file that's got a lot of references, especially when you're doing modeling and stuff, that's a handy tool. I should probably switch to a terrain model. We'll go ahead and open up this terrain model that's referenced into this file. And just so you can see how the Exaggerate Z tool works. So if I come here and do Alt F3, it's going to get a warning that the visual inspection aid only, the evaluation or the elevations values will be shifted, and it's actually going to increase elevations. That's kind of what the VBA does, but it's going to do it in a temporary model that gets created. And then I'll just exaggerate this. And if we come here now, so I'll exaggerate and then data point, and you can see how it shifts and exaggerates the vertical elevations of the elements in there. If I remove the exaggeration, then it goes back and it will clear that out. And then when I close, it will remove that model and put me back in my standard terrain model that was in the design file. So that's kind of how those utilities work. Next, we had a couple updates to LDM and Sheet Navigator. Sheet Navigator can now make presets of revisions. So if you've got, say, a project index and you've had revisions, 2 or 3 revisions on there, and you need to create a PDF of those revisions for delivery, you can now choose which revision. When you select from the file menu to create a preset, you'll be prompted here. You can do all sheets or you can do only in a selected revision and then choose which revision you want to print, and it'll generate a preset containing only the files in that revision. And then there's a couple things in LDM that were added as well. It now remembers if a linked item, a linked piece of data, is scaled or if it was rotated. And then it'll remember that and redraw it the same way when the file or the link is updated. And that's something new. Before, if you either scaled by grabbing the handles of a link and scaled it up or down, or if you rotated it to fit in your view or on your sheet or whatever, next time you updated it, it would forget that and you would have to readjust all of that. Now it will remember that for you going forward, so anytime it gets updated, it will redraw it just like it was before. Level filter controls. There's a new functionality that's been added in FDOTSS4 that allows you to, I guess, gain a little more control over your level filters. You know, for the past several releases that we've had level filters that automatically get applied, You could turn them on and off, that functionality to automatically apply the level filters using a configuration variable up on the server. But now we've made that a little bit easier so each person can control it on their own. If you go to the Actions menu, there's an option to turn level filters on and then an option to turn level filters off. And it will remember that. So if I go in and turn the level filters off, it's going to write a variable to my UCF file, and that way next time I start MicroStation, it's going to remember that I want them off. Same thing if I want them on, I can trigger that, and it will make sure that the level filters are turned on next time I open a file or whatever. And those tools are also available in the plans development workflow. So if you're used to using the task menu, and you've got the FDOT plans development task activated, right up along the top where all the I guess most frequently used tools are, you'll see them added there, one to turn it on and then one to turn it off. Okay, there was some level changes as well. I guess that's kind of common between maintenance releases. We'll tweak some stuff here and there. And this time there was an effort to clean up some of the consistency issues and things with the utility related levels. There were some issues where, especially with power and electric and transformers, and it was just labeled in 3 or 4 different ways depending on which level it was, and it was quite frankly kind of difficult to follow. So we went through and addressed a lot of that. I guess another big thing that you'll notice is that any of the underground utilities, we removed any level A quality from those levels. Now you'll just have quality levels B, C, and D for all of those underground levels. Also, the fiber optics levels were really addressed. I guess before we had just one line style that said FOC for fiber optic cable. Now we've got some line styles for fiber optic cable, as in cable television, fiber optic electric, fiber optic telephone. So you got FOE, FOT, FOC for the various ones. You'll see those changes there. And one of the last things we was working on was to address an issue that the construction office had with the plans. They were concerned about showing proprietary channelizing devices like cones and barrels and such in the plan view. They really don't want to show anything proprietary and make the contractor, I guess, feel obligated to use a specific product. It's really a channelizing device, and they can choose which channelizing device to apply. So we had to go in and restructure some cell libraries, and while we were doing that, we went ahead and broke them out. So now you've got 2 traffic control cell libraries. You got one for kind of the plan view type cells, and then one for the typical section type cells. We also cleaned up other things like the lights and flags, which are no longer allowed. We removed those from the cell library. We deleted some custom line styles for the 4 channelizing devices, except for the pedestrian longitudinal channelizing devices, because those are unique and should be shown. We added some new levels for typicals and such that we kind of ran across while we was restructuring the cell libraries. So that was really the last big push we had before the release there. And then just to address a lot of these level type issues that we discussed on the last couple of slides, there's a new utility available in FDOTSS4 that'll allow you to change the levels that have been modified on older design files to newer valid levels. And basically, if you go to the Actions menu, quality control, and then activate the QC legacy tool, it's going to look just like that and really act a lot like the QC tool. It'll launch, it'll scan the file and identify any levels used in the file that were actually legacy levels in the old standards. Then you'll be able to select those levels and assign them to a new level, and then click OK, and it'll just basically update all the elements on all the selected elements to that new level. And that's really it. So I'm going to scan the questions one more time. Has the new line styles for utilities been updated in the design standards? Yes. Do the FDOT SS4 custom apps like project creation, file create, work with Bentley ProjectWise? No, they don't. If not, are there any plans to have the FDOT apps work with more fluidly with ProjectWise? Currently, no. We are currently looking at document management systems. If we wind up choosing ProjectWise, then of course we'll look at that. If we choose another product, then of course it will be another product we'll be developing for. Is there any major changes for the structural bar menu? Again, no, there weren't any major changes other than cell libraries updated to reflect changes in standards and stuff like that. Is there a reason to keep S3 once SS4 is installed? No, not really. Again, it's just a maintenance release. It's just an unusual one because you do have the civil model change. You need to click yes the first time you open it. But other than that, it's just a standard normal stuff you see when you go from one maintenance release to another. Can we use a conversion file for changes like old levels to new levels? Yeah, you can. We don't have a conversion file made though, so you would have to build it, but then you could then apply that conversion file, across the project and not run it like the manual tool I showed there on a file-by-file basis. And it looks like that one's being answered several times, so way to jump in there, gang. There's also, Rebecca points out, there's also a new folder added to the project directory structure. There's a new GIS folder. This was added at the request of surveying and mapping to address some GIS initiatives they're working with the right-of-way folks on. That way they'll have a folder to place their data into in the project. Sometimes when I open SS4, I get an error that says unable to access featured database. That's actually probably a GEOPAK user preference. The featured database, I believe that error message is referring to is the SMD file. So if you go to your GEOPAK road user preferences and make sure it's pointing to the SMD file for whatever workspace you're working in, it should address that error. Are there other function keys going to change in SS4 when using the main classic menu? The function keys and which menus you have selected are two different things. So no, changing and using the main classic menu will not affect the function keys. It'll still be using the FDOT function keys that I showed earlier, unless of course you manually go to your user preferences and remap those. Is that a major change to line styles throughout the current levels in SS3? There's not a major change. Like I said, it was mainly just the fiber optic cable stuff. Of course, we removed some line styles in traffic control. And then asking if we will make a conversion file for that. Yeah, maybe in our spare time when we get around to it. It's one of those things that kind of drags out there, right? So just so everybody knows, we will be posting a video of this webinar. We will be also posting all of these questions. We will download these questions, go through and answer them probably in maybe in a little bit more detail, and then post those as well. That way you can refer to those in the future. So since I don't see any more questions coming in, we will go ahead and call this one a wrap. If you have any suggestions for webinars, please send those in now. Share your opinions on webinar content.